Nelson Mandela, a name that echoes through the corridors of history, evoking visions of struggle, resilience, and ultimately, hope. Born into the rural village of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, on July 18, 1918, Mandela's life began far from the world stage. His birth name was Rolihlahla Mandela, a Xhosa word meaning pulling the branch of a tree, or more colloquially, troublemaker. From his earliest days, Mandela was shaped by the traditions and stories of his Thembu people. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa, was a respected chief and counselor to the Thembu royal family, instilling young Nelson with a sense of duty and justice. When Nelson was only 9 years old, his father died, altering the course of his life. After his father's death, Mandela was sent to live in the regal homestead of Chief Jongintaba de Lindibo, the acting regent of the Thembu nation. It was in the royal residence at Mekekazweni that Mandela learned the codes of leadership and the responsibilities of governance. Surrounded by elders and tribal leaders, Mandela absorbed lessons in diplomacy, consensus, and the power of words. As a boy, Mandela herded cattle and listened to the elders' stories around the fire, absorbing the oral traditions that would shape his worldview. Mandela was one of the first in his family to attend school, where he was given the English name Nelson by his teacher. At Helltown, a Wesleyan secondary school, Mandela excelled in academics and sports, particularly boxing and running. He moved on to the University of Fort Hare, a prestigious institution for Black South Africans. It was at Fort Hare that Mandela first tasted political activism, joining a student protest that led to his expulsion. Facing an arranged marriage upon his return home, Mandela chose to flee to Johannesburg, seeking freedom and opportunity. In Johannesburg, the young Mandela encountered the harsh realities of racial segregation. The city was a crucible for political awakening, and Mandela soon found himself drawn to the African National Congress, or ANC. Working as a law clerk by day, Mandela studied for his law degree at night. He became friends with Walter Sisulu, a prominent activist who would become one of his closest allies. The racial injustices Mandela witnessed fueled his determination to fight for equality. In 1944, Mandela helped found the Azee Youth League, advocating for a more militant approach against apartheid. He married Evelyn Mays that same year, and together they had 4 children. Mandela's involvement in activism grew as the apartheid regime tightened its grip on South Africa. In 1948, the National Party came to power, instituting a system of institutionalized racial segregation known as apartheid. Apartheid classified people by race and enforced severe restrictions on Black South Africans. Mandela's legal work brought him face to face with the injustices of apartheid. With Oliver Tambo, he established South Africa's first black law firm, providing legal aid to those targeted by racist laws. The ANC began organizing mass protests and strikes against apartheid policies. Mandela emerged as a charismatic leader, orchestrating the Defiance Campaign of 1952. This campaign encouraged Black South Africans to defy unjust laws through nonviolent resistance. The government responded with brutal crackdowns, mass arrests, and increasing repression. Mandela was arrested and banned from attending gatherings or speaking in public. Nevertheless, his stature grew within the anti-apartheid movement. In 1956, Mandela and 155 others were charged with treason, sparking the infamous treason trial. The trial would drag on for years, but Mandela and his co-accused were eventually acquitted. During this period, Mandela's marriage to Evelyn crumbled under the strain of his activism. In 1958, Mandela married Winnie Madikizela, a social worker who would become his partner in struggle and later, a political figure in her own right. The 1960 Sharpeville massacre, in which police killed 69 unarmed protesters, marked a turning point. The government banned the ANC and declared a state of emergency. Mandela concluded that nonviolent resistance was no longer effective against such brutal repression. He co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, the Spear of the Nation, an armed wing of the ANC. The group launched sabotage campaigns against government installations and infrastructure. Mandela traveled across Africa and to London, seeking support for the armed struggle. On his return to South Africa in 1962, Mandela was arrested and charged with leaving the country illegally and inciting strikes. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but that was only the beginning. In 1963, police raided a farm in Rivonia, capturing documents linking Mandela and other activists to the sabotage campaign. Mandela and his co-accused faced the death penalty in the infamous Rivonia trial. At the trial, Mandela delivered a now legendary speech, stating, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Instead of death, Mandela was sentenced to life in prison. He was sent to Robben Island, a bleak and windswept prison off the coast of Cape Town. Life on Robben Island was harsh and dehumanizing. Prisoners endured hard labor, inadequate food, and isolation from the outside world. Despite these conditions, Mandela became a symbol of dignity and resilience. He and his fellow prisoners turned Robben Island into a university, teaching and learning from each other. Mandela's calm authority won the respect of prisoners and guards alike. Over the years, Mandela's stature as a global symbol of resistance to injustice only grew. International campaigns called for his release, while the South African government refused to relent. In prison, Mandela's relationship with Winnie came under strain, but she continued to campaign for his freedom. Years turned into decades. Mandela was transferred to Pollsmoor Prison in 1982, then later to Victor Verster Prison. The world outside was changing. Anti-apartheid movements gained momentum, and economic sanctions squeezed South Africa. By the late 1980s, the apartheid regime was crumbling under internal and external pressure. Secret negotiations began between Mandela and government officials. Mandela insisted that any settlement must include the unbanning of the ANC and the release of all political prisoners. On February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free after 27 years behind bars. His release was met with jubilation in South Africa and around the world. Mandela called for reconciliation, not revenge, urging South Africans of all races to work together for a new nation. He became the leader of the ANC and began negotiations to dismantle apartheid. The road to democracy was fraught with violence, mistrust, and political assassinations. Mandela's moral authority was instrumental in preventing civil war. In 1993, Mandela and President F.W. de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to end apartheid. The world watched as South Africa prepared for its first multiracial elections. In April 1994, millions of South Africans cast their ballots for the first time. Nelson Mandela was elected president, becoming the country's first black head of state. His inauguration was a moment of profound symbolism and hope. Mandela's presidency marked the beginning of a new chapter for South Africa. He championed reconciliation, forming a government of national unity with representatives from all major parties. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, offered a platform for healing the wounds of the past. Mandela promoted forgiveness over vengeance, urging South Africans to embrace the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are. Under Mandela's leadership, South Africa adopted a new, inclusive constitution enshrining human rights for all. He focused on building institutions, reforming education, and addressing the deep inequalities left by apartheid. Mandela's personal warmth and charisma won him friends and admirers across the world. He reached out to the white minority, even donning the Springbok rugby jersey to unite a divided nation. The 1995 Rugby World Cup became a powerful symbol of reconciliation and national pride. But Mandela's presidency was not without challenges. South Africa grappled with poverty, crime, and the legacy of economic disparity. Mandela also had to balance competing interests within the ANC and the broader population. After serving a single term, Mandela chose to step down in 1999, setting a vital precedent for democratic leadership. In retirement, he continued to campaign for peace, justice, and HIV/AIDS awareness. Mandela established the Nelson Mandela Foundation, focusing on education and social justice. He became a global elder statesman, speaking out on issues from poverty to human rights. Despite declining health, Mandela's spirit remained unbroken. He celebrated his 90th birthday with a worldwide concert, a testament to his enduring impact. Mandela's final years were spent surrounded by family and friends in the land he had helped free. On December 5, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. The world mourned the loss of a leader whose life had changed the course of history. Mandela's legacy is one of courage, forgiveness, and the belief in the possibility of a better future. He taught that no one is born hating another person because of the color of their skin. Through his life and example, Mandela showed that even the most entrenched systems of injustice can be overcome. Today, Nelson Mandela's story inspires people everywhere to stand up for justice and equality. His message endures. It always seems impossible until it's done.